The Pokémon Diamond and Pearl remakes are a chance for the Pokémon Company to truly recreate those great moments that we had from the 4th generation. As Diamond and Pearl were the most memorable games for me, and the ones that I waited for by counting the months, month after month until they were finally released, I thought it'd be fun to go through some of the most spectacular moments that the games brought not only to me, but a lot of Pokémon fans out there who were also moved by this generation. These remakes bring a chance to encapsulate what Generation 4 brought to some of our childhoods, so today we go over 5 things from these games that were special to me, as well as many Pokémon fans, and a big part of what made these games so great that can be reinvigorated in these new upcoming games. Hope you enjoy the 5 spectacular moments from the original games that could be even better in the Pokémon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl remakes. I don't know if they will be though, it's just I have no proof, they aren't even out yet. Number 5. Wi-Fi Battles. Generation 4 was the first generation to introduce battling over the internet. Now maybe this wasn't everyone's first time doing that, since you were able to have serious competitive battles in the generations prior with things like link cables and that wireless gray connection trapezoid you put on your Game Boy Advance. But for those of us that didn't have friends, Generation 4 let us battle with internet strangers on forums. There were also items introduced in this generation that you had to grind for, like the power items, that helped make training your Pokemon to be viable more apparent. There was the Macho Brace, but the fact that each power item was specific to a stat helped introduce those of us into a more accessible competitive experience. I still lost, I'm not saying it helped, I'm just saying the advertising was there so those of us that didn't know about this aspect of Pokemon could learn through Google and YouTube videos. It made a very fun experience to be able to battle with anyone worldwide, and I hope that this brings back a lot of old Wi-Fi battlers from those days into this remake. I can't be too certain what the Pokédex for the remake will be, and which Pokémon will be included or not included, but if it is really just Generation 4 Pokémon, and a little bit from the generations before that, I'm okay with that. You know why? Because those were simpler times. When I'm losing to things like Skarmory Blissey. Yeah, sure, it's the early 2000s, the economy is falling apart around us, the world is flooding not just from the icebergs, but from the tears of everyone walking the streets. But I'm not losing to a chandelier that spits out fire, okay? I'm losing to a defense, special defense combo. That's just 1 + 1, swap in, swap out. That's simple math that I can't seem to add together for some reason. But that's just what it is, not dining room furniture. Generation 4 definitely got a lot of people into competitive battles, and it was the generation that really sprouted a lot of content on YouTube, and hopefully brings back a lot of those nostalgic moments from the humbling days. Number 4. The Underground. One of the main features that almost all Generation 4 fans talk about is the Underground, and that needs to make a return. It wasn't simply that I felt emotionally underground and being physically as well in a video game would help personify my inner turmoil, no, it was the option to have someone be down there with you in the pits of despair. This was the closest to a multiplayer experience in Pokemon at the time. You were a kid just wanting to play with your friend, and here you were in Pokemon, able to run around the same place, in-game, dig through walls for items, and show off your secret bases that you could both hang out in. It was a great expansion of what they did in Generation 3, where in that generation, it was only a simple NPC of your friend in their transferred over secret base. You could also set traps and just have an overall fun time in this special location that Generation 4 introduced. While it may not seem like a lot, the moments created from the small location can hopefully be recreated in an all-out new experience while maintaining the same experiences we had with it from years ago. Hopefully they can add even more to the Underground. Number 3. Shiny Pokemon. Generation 4 was the first game where I got a shiny Pokemon. Maybe this is a little specific, as not everyone will be getting their first shiny Pokemon in the same generation, but Pokemon also introduced new ways of catching shiny Pokemon during this generation. There was the Pokéradar, and being able to chain Pokemon together to have higher chances of encountering one. The way I got my first shiny Pokemon was through the GTS, which is another amazing thing that they brought into Pokemon. One day I turned on my DS and looked at this global trading system, and saw a shiny Gengar that only needed a level 56 Salamence to obtain. And I went for it. Sweat dripping down my forehead, quickly rushing to find my copy of Pokemon Ruby so I could transfer one over through Palpark and trade for this incredibly rare type of Pokemon. I needed to be fast since I was afraid anyone would see this deal in the Grand Exchange and take it before I did. Nothing was gonna stop me besides the yelling from my parents about how I'd be grounded if I didn't do the dishes. But I had to be quick. And I got it. But then I went onto the GameFAQs forums to talk about how I got myself a shiny Gengar through this clearly legitimate way of getting a shiny Pokemon, and hoping to get the appraisal of others talking about how proud they are of me, but then they said it might not be real. It could have been hacked. They started commenting about how this Gengar might not be legitimate even though it was legitimate to me. And then they asked if I knew what an action replay was, but it was only my first time playing through the game. It's still a moment though. Shiny Pokemon always had a special place in my heart because of Generation 4. Not just from this legitimate interaction that's completely true, but also because you would see them on Wi-Fi battles quite a bit, and even though I may have never gotten another shiny Pokemon after that, things like the GTS, the Pokeradar being introduced in this generation did add some shiny Pokemon fun to make a great experience nonetheless, and one that can be recreated in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Number 2. Mythical Quest. I've talked a lot about this aspect of Generation 4 from different angles, but these were just such great experiences. It wasn't simply just going through the quest itself, it was the fact that all the generations before this had mythical Pokemon you were unable to encounter. It was already a bit unfortunate that as a kid, you couldn't even catch every Pokemon in the games due to the version exclusive encounters. But then having these rare and cool looking Pokemon that you would need event items for that you couldn't obtain and therefore couldn't encounter them was added sadness. There wasn't a video for every little detail in Pokemon back then, emulators also weren't as accessible, so it was more difficult to know things and try things. We had things like Hope the Rocket Experiment in Mossy gets to 100 so you can go to the moon, but just the naivety of being a small child and wanting to see these Pokemon you weren't able to encounter was demoralizing that led you to believe any rumor that was there. So when Generation 4 started distributing these through Wi-Fi, instead of just in-person events in certain locations, it added so much and changed the overall game because not only were you able to encounter these Pokemon, you were also given a whole adventure to go on. It changed the game for the better and was hopefully the start of new inventive ways for these Pokemon with long-winded stories and abilities. Hopefully the Pokemon Company sees the impact this feature brought to Generation 4 and makes it a static part of the Pokemon universe. As every Pokemon deserves its own tale, whether that be how someone encountered it or the adventure you had to go on to do so. Number 1. A new art style. Now this isn't to say anything about the art style from the current remake trailers, this is about how the art style from the original Gen 4 games was borderline mind-blowing and a great experience when going from the Game Boy Advance to the Nintendo DS. Apparently the new art style from the remake is also mind-blowing to Pokemon fans in a different way, but just seeing all these small buildings pop out at you for the first time was its own beautiful experience. I mean, if you're currently young, maybe looking back didn't mean as much, that might have been yesterday, but going from this to this was an experience. Now we have 4K monitors, pixel-by-pixel recreations of people in video games, televisions with a soap opera effect that make it so realistic that you'd think you were young and restless, that the original Generation 4 games might not have felt like the biggest jump from one generation to another. But as the new game that I remember counting the months one by one, waiting for it to come out without the same internet hype that we get these days, and finally getting the game only to see it beautifully created in these new graphics, and playing for 18 hours straight in my blanket fort of dual screen radiation, trying to pretend I'm asleep, was such an amazing memory that I hope these remakes can do that for new Pokemon players, and old Pokemon players coming back to the games. While the whole chibi style might not be everyone's forte, it is mentioned how they want to make a remake that is true to the old games. And hopefully that can bring in the same feeling from the release of the original games, but to everyone who started even after this generation's release. It'll still be cool to see Pokemon in the overworld, or cutscenes in this new style, and while it might be criticized a bit, it can still add a great experience in its own way. And hopefully it does just that to anyone who gets into these new Pokemon games.